years ago, a Minecraft server named SMPLive was created. Beginning on March 1st, 2019, the server was created by Call Me Carson and C-Scoop, and it would be one of the key pieces that contributed to the resurgence of Minecraft. This server required you to be live streaming to play on it, and this twist would bring in wide audiences and spawn careers for more than 50 people. As expected, most of the newly created fan bases would consist of normal people, those who congregated in the streamers' chats to hang out and have a good time, but lurking in the shadows was something much darker, and its bitter presence would slowly but surely make itself known. Rabid fans swooning over celebrities has been practiced ever since the inception of fan culture, though the stories with bitter endings would be what turned this behavior from phenomena to fear, with events like the assassination of John Lennon or the George Stalker incident becoming infamous. White rapper Eminem would team up with singer Dido, where in 2000 the duo would release a song titled Stan. The song itself describes a deranged fan of Eminem trying and failing to make contact with the artist, before he proceeds to lock his girlfriend in the trunk of his car and drive off a bridge. This song's usage of the main character's name, Stan, would coin the term, typically referring to a shortened version of the phrase stalker fan. Modern stan culture would see itself begin to form on platforms like Tumblr, and once the music genre of K-pop became popularized in the West, a large portion of stans would see themselves latching onto this too. In late 2018, Tumblr would make various policy changes to their website, the big one being a much-needed ban on pornography, and this caused everyone to flee to Twitter. Throughout 2019, stans would start to attach their identities to Minecraft YouTubers that were rising up at the time, and the more devious of these individuals would start to ship creators with each other. To be clear, not every fan is a stan, and not every stan is actively being a weirdo, and even still, not every weirdo is a sick fuck. The groups partaking in reprehensible behavior were a minority within a minority, but they were vocal enough to disgust creators and fans who came across their posts. Over time, more instances of the behavior described here would pop up, and all of this would come to a head with an incident that was exposed on December 11th, 2019. SMP Confessions number 1. I went to TwitchCon. I met my favorite streamers, especially Cooper. I may have taken a plastic water bottle that was Cooper's, and I still have it to this day. From Anon. At TwitchCon, which took place in September of that year, many of the Twitch streamers who were part of SMPLive would attend the event and get to meet fans, with some like Jay Schlatt even revealing their faces in the process. Though this was mostly a nice experience, some streamers would be upset with fans that chose to take unsolicited pictures or otherwise act weird around the creator they were seeing, and all of it made sense once people found this tweet. At least it wasn't the nightmare that was TwitchCon 2022. It wouldn't take long for streamers to notice this account and take action, with Cooper's friend Poke being the first to discover this vile confession. News of this would quickly spread throughout circles, with Wilbur Soot and the aforementioned Carson both receiving this information and replying to Poke. Notably, Wilbur tweeted about how weird fans would keep him up at night, where he reported an incident where he was supposedly sniffed at TwitchCon. Carson, who was very upset and trying to protect his friends, would go live on Twitch that night.
I wanna fuck you, but they're underage, so it's just weird.
How far underage?
The stream begins with Carson discussing how he believes that the community he fostered is mostly normal, but buried within it is a weird group of people who go out of their way to violate the boundaries of him and his friends. He then pulls up the tweet that was the catalyst and outlines two possibilities. A. The person behind the account is a troll. This would mean that the night's drama was caused by someone looking to stir up controversy, and their scheme wound up gaining way more attention than expected. Option 2 is a much darker reality, as it implies that the events surrounding this tweet are entirely real, and the way that Carson speaks makes this scenario far more likely to be what actually happened. Throughout the stream, Carson shifts from topic to topic, though all of them fit under one common issue: boundaries. Whether the fanfics are about two creators being shipped together or murdering each other, the reality is that many of the subjects involved made streamers feel incredibly uncomfortable with what their fans were doing, getting to the point where Carson needed to dedicate an entire stream towards voicing this sentiment. The initial responses to this stream varied. On one hand, many people either reacted with disgust, or apologized for their actions and promised to change. This is not the group that we will be focusing on. Instead, I want to draw your attention to the people who tried to fight back. Many of the individuals who felt attacked decided to respond by creating defenses which missed the point of Carson's stream, attempting to divert the issue and make streamers look like they are in the wrong. Arguments like these devalue the conversation, as the actual issue has very little to do with the water bottle itself. The problem comes from the fact that if this is a situation that actually occurred, that means that an actual stalker stole property from a YouTuber and kept it hidden within their prized possessions for nearly 3 months. It doesn't matter whether it's a water bottle or a wallet. An obsessed individual has committed a crime simply because their idol's DNA has touched something that is easy for them to take. Ignoring the main situation, it's still morally reprehensible to write and fantasize about 2 streamers engaging in sexual intercourse, or about one of their fathers, who on top of being an unwilling participant and private figure, getting shot and mutilated. The individuals who were upset felt betrayed by the creators who they looked up to, but over time everything cooled off and nothing ever came of this. Right? Underground, a small group of people had formed a chat, and they were plotting an operation to cancel various streamers from SMPLive, SMP Earth, and the recently formed Lunch Club. For a period of up to 5 months, several people had been actively digging through various accounts and profiles, compiling screenshots and clips that could be made to look bad when clipped out of context. When selecting the targets for their operation, they needed to make sure that they were taking vengeance against people who had both spoken against stan behavior and had something that could be manipulated for nefarious purposes. This led to a variety of candidates being considered, but only 3 would have a substantial campaign be raised against them. The first was Cooper, who was attacked on May 19th, 2020, shortly after ending his stream for the day. At this point, a throwaway Twitter account with the username YLGada was registered, with the individual going by the name Nicole. Nicole had dug deep and found actual dirt, posting a clip of Cooper saying the N-word 5 times while high. Had this been handled correctly, the video could have actually damaged Cooper's career and left lasting effects in the process. However, given the types of people who were spreading it, this was bound to fail. The following day, a video claiming to contain more instances of Cooper being racist was compiled, as well as campaigns being launched against Carson and Schlatt. Though this sounds bad at first, the reality is that all 3 of these cancellations would ultimately fail, and there's a multitude of reasons why. Let's start by discussing the staged reaction to the Cooper clip being posted. Immediately, stans like Treva and Felix King jumped out of the woodwork to aid in the cancellations, with most of the traction coming from the former having around 8,000 followers. This was considered huge for a stan account. Given the way that stans tend to express themselves, this made onlookers unable to take any of what was being presented seriously. While this was going down, a group of people defending the creators formed, and they were quickly able to show how most of the proof was actually just a reference, meme, quote, joke, or otherwise something that had been deliberately misinterpreted. Let's dissect the propaganda compilation published against Cooper, as the video in question lasts a mere 22 seconds and features most of its proof for less than a second per instance. In fact, half of it is just random clips of Cooper. Except for the Tapple clip I mentioned earlier, everything featured gives us very little to work with. The second most notable piece of evidence was a different instance of Cooper saying the N-word, this time while live and with a soft A. This clip is blatantly taken out of context, so what I decided to do was set up a comparison between the full version and the one used in the video. The results? Why don't you take a look for yourself?
I fucking love Injury Reserve. Much, but I'll make a nigga fresh, yeah. Oh shit! It was the song, I'm sorry! It's the song, I apologize.
Yeah, I hope you see why actual fans weren't buying this crap. Shortly after the release of the defamatory Cooper video, the man himself would go offline, not returning to streaming until he moved with his roommates. During this break, people began to focus more on Carson and Schlatt. Against Carson, what was found was an interesting username from his NameMC profile, which he had already addressed before, and would proceed to address again during a Breath of the Wild livestream. This attempt to cancel Carson, as well as his initial response, are meaningless compared to actual drama he's been involved in, and his role during May 2020 has ultimately become forgotten. As for Schlatt, a lot of different things have been brought up surrounding him. A couple things are real, some of it is out of context, and other things are outright fake. Here's what circulated in May of 2020. As explained in my video discussing attempts to cancel Schlatt, only these Discord messages are actually real, as evidenced by user IDs, and a clip of him using a homophobic slur. Watch my video about this stuff if you want more info. Schlatt chose not to respond to anything levied against him, as he had already deemed it not worth his time and had bigger issues to worry about in his life. For the next few days, the stans pressed on, continuing to pressure Cooper and Schlatt, who had both gone radio silent. Of course, the two eventually returned, but it seemed that a couple of people in particular wanted blood. Within the main group chat created to target Cooper, a stan named Put Me On That Box would take the fact that a fan artist going by Cup Toast, also known as Crumb, had gained contact with various creators and would attempt to turn it into false allegations. Basically, she and her friend Gracie EXE had come up with a scheme that involved accusing Cooper of grooming Crumb due to their contact and age difference. Despite the goal of this move being unclear, they wanted to convince the rest of the group chat to help them spread this rumor, but this move wouldn't go smoothly. Instead, Crumb would have a mental breakdown over the allegations and publicly threaten to make an attempt on her life, and these posts single-handedly ruined everything. Nice one. Infighting and leaks completely took over discussion in the group chat, and this resulted in intense backlash being directed towards the two stans responsible. As a result, all authority and power behind the movement vanished, and nothing notable would happen for approximately a month. At this point, it seemed like things outside the group chat were beginning to die down. Fans were satisfied with the responses that Cooper and Carson had given to the situation, and even some stans were beginning to back off. Of course, not all of them were pleased, but the situation had become irrelevant and people had begun to move on. By the first week of June, it seemed like it would all be a footnote, if it was even worth mentioning. But little did we know that this story was far from over. It all started with Carson taking one big risk. Stan culture around me and my friends is weird, especially because they think of themselves as our biggest supporters, but most of their time is spent as a group trying to find ways to be mad at us. In a tweet deleted within hours of it being posted, Carson had only intended to state his frustration over his belief that the stans were out to get him, and this had only been reaffirmed through the events during May. He expanded on this in a reply, though this too would be wiped. Upon clarifying why he deleted the tweet, tension began to increase, when a stan deliberately ignored Carson's message and made 4 tweets trying to tell Carson to hold Cooper accountable. He instead proceeded to make a tweet about his antidepressants, basically mocking stans trying to farm sympathy from others in the community. As the reaction from stans started to become more bitter, Carson would attempt to de-escalate the situation by agreeing with a point made by Ruby, as well as making a tweet about the meal he ate at Benihana. Despite this, the rage would continue to get worse, and eventually, Carson had had enough. Bye-bye! Carson began blocking people. The stans freaked out at this, quickly getting Carson on the Twitter trending tab as he continued to make tweets about the situation. And this would all culminate the following day when Carson went live to do a second stream about stans. Now, most of the points he made during the stream can actually be summed up by this thread that was made the following day, and despite being the catalyst, the stream itself wasn't that important. It was what happened after. There were 2 things that the stans did in response that only continued to damage their credibility. The first of these had to do with the misuse of the term hyperfixation, attempting to claim that this would excuse their obsessive and defamatory behavior. Hyperfixation is defined by dictionary.com as... oh, that's great. Hyperfixation can generally be defined by being completely absorbed or engrossed by an object, topic, or almost anything, with a person in this state getting to the point of tuning out the world around them. The amount of time that hyperfixations last can vary. Some are a few days, others can be several months. What is interesting to know, however, is that these can be picked up and dropped in an instant, and though not a requirement, behaviors like hyperfixation tend to be affiliated with people who have autism or ADHD. So why do I bring this up? Well, it takes one to know one. But as it turns out, many of the stans are actually infuriated with the tweet that Carson made mocking how some would try to get attention from him in dumb ways. The route of antidepressants takes us down the path of mental health, and this is how the idea of hyperfixations was thrown into the conversation in the first place. Carson's response to this attack was pretty sufficient, though I think a much better argument can be made. It is not a content creator's responsibility to cater to every single person who watches them. For some reason, stans seem to think that they are entitled to having everything run their way, when in reality, it's been shown that catering to this audience not only puts a high volume of stress on the creator, but also drives out other, more normal fans from the community. Nobody owes it to this group of people to fulfill every request and censor themselves, and instead of just leaving like a normal person, stans have to try to poorly manipulate the creators before proceeding to have a toxic meltdown, and then dedicating their entire online presence to blaming everyone but themselves for their own actions. Carson would come to realize that he couldn't please everyone, and if we factor stans into the audience he had watching that stream, I would guess that more than 90% of people were in favor of Carson when everything went down. And needless to say, this didn't really have much effects on his career. At this point, many got desperate, and some would try to employ a new tactic with the goal of causing chaos. During his stream, several people began claiming that they were being doxxed by Carson's fans on Twitter. Interestingly, every person claiming to have been doxxed has since deleted all of their tweets, but when this all went down, the action of one person in particular caught my attention. Instead of showing some kind of proof that they were doxxed, Felix King, whose current name will be redacted, chose to harass Carson and his friends, and this did nothing to help their case. Despite Carson himself disavowing the people who were doxing stans, this individual continued to obsess and attempt to cancel various streamers, but to say that this person is acting in good faith is obviously untrue. Remember the girls who got exposed for trying to falsely accuse Cooper? Well, look who not only decided to redact the names of the accusers before publishing screenshots, but chose to actively spread the allegations to over 600 people. There is no justifying anything that this person has done. Yep. During the production of this video, this person wound up becoming homeless, and then their Twitter account got suspended for, get this, tweeting out Tim Pool's docs. All I can really say at this point is, if you're gonna dish it out, you better be prepared to take it. After this point, the stan communities surrounding the former SMPLive streamers began to split up and migrate away, with most who chose to continue standing picking up on Dream SMP shortly after Tommy Innit, one of the creators not involved in this drama, had been invited by Dream. Today, Dream and his affiliates have an infamous reputation, as Dream and his butt buddies choose to actively enable and encourage stans. This has backed all of them into a corner, as the number of stans within these people's fan bases is large enough to cause significant damage to this group's careers, as well as normal fans leaving due to the results of their behavior. The creators, specifically the three covered today, haven't fared any better. When Carson got accused of actually grooming fans, this destroyed not only his, but several other streamers' communities. Let's make no mistake, I have a lot to say about this subject, but that story is for another day. Looking at the content produced by the other two, it's becoming more clear with each upload that Schlatt hates the position he's currently in, as well as an entirely different set of restrictions that come with it. Cooper chose to abandon both of these, as he now regrets many of the choices he made for his career during the Lunch Club era. At least he's happy with the videos he uploads today, and I'd still say they're pretty good too. As weird as it is, the only winners were the stans that chose to get off the internet and actually work towards improving their lives. Despite this, all groups know that their actions have been forever documented, regardless of whether or not it reflects who they are today. Much of what can be observed today is disconnected and depressing, with nobody wanting to affiliate with each other anymore and entire communities being torn into pieces. Today, all of these people and groups have drifted far too apart from each other to ever rebuild the broken bridges. 4 years ago, there was a time where everyone here was happy with the community that once existed, and all of it can be traced back to one point of convergence: SMPLive.